Welcome back, everyone. I've had the pleasure of working at Villanova School of Business as the Vice Dean for the last few years, helping to lead VSB ever forward alongside now Provost Pat Magidi. And I now have the honor of serving in the role of the Interim Dean. And in this interim year, I'm a believer that we are on a great path with a great trajectory, and I intend to continue that momentum as we move forward as a school. I thought I'd share a little bit about my background and why I chose to come to Villanova. I've been at Villanova 12 years. I grew up in Virginia. I went to James Madison University as an undergrad. I worked as an operations manager in an aircraft business, and then decided to go get an MBA and then later a PhD at Indiana University. And when I was looking for a faculty job, when I came out of Indiana, something struck me about Villanova that made me want to come here. There was a number of things. And I wanted to tell you how we recruit faculty here and the thing that appealed to me, because I think we do it in a unique way that's very Villanova. So a typical hiring process in higher education as a faculty member is you're focused on research, and you go into a research presentation at the schools that you're lucky enough to interview with. And then from that research presentation, the faculty infer how you might do in the classroom. We don't do that at Villanova. We don't trust you. We require you to actually teach a class. As novel as that might sound, we actually make you teach a real class in front of real students. And not only that, we ask the students how they think you did. So it's a very different process for hiring faculty. We not only require them to be great researchers and come from great schools, they have to have significant talent in the classroom. We've had people come in and do a wonderful research presentation, and then they go in front of our students and they absolutely crash and burn. We've avoided situations where a bad teacher could end up on Villanova's campus, heaven forbid. So it's something that's unique about Villanova, even in the way that we recruit faculty. So I came to Villanova as a faculty member in the Management and Operations Department, and some years later I became the department chair of that department, and then followed along as the vice dean, and then here today. So I came to Villanova because of the focus on its students. I stay at Villanova because of the community. And I know that many of the faculty in this room stay at Villanova because of the community. A community of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and friends. So now I get this great opportunity to talk to all of you about some of the great things we're doing at VSB that leads to a competitive edge. Our competitive edge comes from an unrelenting focus on the student experience. And there's lots of different components to that, and we have to work hard every day to make sure that we are moving forward in each of these areas. The first thing is you have to have exceptional students. And we welcomed a class this fall of students that exceeded our expectations, set records in terms of numbers. The average, the middle 50% SAT range of this incoming class this year was 1270 to 1430. Now that means that 25% of the incoming class has SATs above 1430. When I went to school, I thought the top score was like 1400. That's what my guidance counselors told me. GPAs are the same way. GPAs 3.82 to 4.27, the middle 50%. So 25% of our students have higher than 4.27 GPA. Again, I thought 4.0 was the highest. In order to have a great student experience, you also have to be able to attract great faculty, and I've talked about that. They have to be top researchers, and they have to be able to do well in the classroom. We welcomed 7 new faculty members this fall across all of our departments, and we're looking forward to seeing them grow in the Villanova community. In order to have a great student experience, you also have to have outstanding student services. And that comes from the staff that we have in VSB. Our Clay Center is our one-stop shop for all things dealing with student services. Within that Clay Center, we just recently launched the Charlotte and James V. O'Donnell Center for Professional Development. And we have about 1,000 graduate students now that we provide services to. We believe in focusing on our students, and that is a differentiator for us. The learning environment. You have to have a great learning environment in order to have a great student experience. And so if you've been in Bartley Hall recently, you've noticed that we've been sprucing up the place. We've built new classrooms, we've renovated common areas, and we will systematically go throughout the building until the entire building is renovated. And these opportunities come from donors' investments in VSB. And so if you like your name and you'd like to see it on a plaque, we'd love to talk to you. If you don't like your name, we'll be happy to provide a name for you and we'll put it on the plaque for you. The next piece is external engagement, and this is probably our marquee external engagement event of the year. We believe that the connection between us and you is critical to the student experience. And lastly, you have to have an innovative curricula. We have to be on the cutting edge. And we do this by preparing our students to be professionals, giving students real-world experience, connecting theory to practice, and carrying forward the Villanova legacy of our Augustinian values. Take all of these components together, and you put that in the context of our amazing community, and it's no wonder why our students do so well. I'm going to walk you through some examples of how we do this. We put together some videos to highlight some of the things that we are proud of with the student experience. These are just 3. These examples touch on each of those components of the student experience. One of the key differentiators here at VSB is how we prepare our students to become professionals. There are many programs that we offer our students that run parallel to our curriculum. The typical things, internships, speakers, panelists, networking opportunities. Many schools offer these types of programs, but we do professional development different. We go a step further and actually infuse professional development in the curriculum in all 4 years. For example, in the freshman year, among other things, we require that every VSB student now become Bloomberg certified. We're the only school in the country that does that. We have a standalone sophomore seminar that focuses on soft skills and career exploration. In the senior year, we have lots of opportunities for job search skills. One of the elements in the junior year that is truly unique, again, we're the only school in the country that can pull this off, is a competition called the Bartley Briefcase Challenge. Students participate in an in-house case competition in which we give them a case, a business case, on Thursday evening, and we tell them they have to present that case to a panel of industry judges at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. This is a graded element. It's a graded course. The students love that. And it's required of every single junior. The following video will help you see how this program impacts our students as well as our judges. This competition is something that provides an opportunity for all of you to showcase your talents and your abilities in front of some very prestigious judges for many of the companies that you are actually interviewing to work for.
I think the most beneficial aspect of this competition is the opportunity for students to have a chance to practice some really important skills that they'll put to work once they leave here. This competition touches on communications. They have to make a business presentation. There's certainly a major teamwork element of it, and there's also a chance to do a lot of analytical problem solving while they work on the case.
The most beneficial aspect of this competition is the teamwork. Students get to work together with people that they've met for the very first time.
I really like the whole concept that the teams were randomly selected for this competition. And I think that's something that definitely happens in the real world. You know, you don't get to really pick your coworkers. Sometimes you don't even get to pick the project you work on. So knowing how to really kind of take whatever you're given in stride and run with it, I think that's a really important life skill to learn.
The great thing was I was able to use so many of the things that I've learned throughout my different classes here at Villanova. So I think this is something that's really relatable to everything that we do moving forward in our careers.
Not only is it a place to practice all these really important skills, but they also get to do it in front of potential employers.
The judges, they've come from all different backgrounds, from different companies who've been very successful. So all the advice that they're giving us, we're able to use not only as we're moving forward throughout the day in the competition, but as we're moving forward with our careers.
The creativity that you guys showed in your recommendations was just great. No matter what the company was, you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, you gave us an answer. You didn't just sort of say, here's a problem, and then leave it sitting there on the table.
I was impressed beyond my expectation with how good each of the sessions and each of the teams were. They are articulate, sophisticated in their thinking, poised stylistically and on substance.
I think the Bartley Briefcase Challenge really speaks for the real-world experience in business. There's a lot of fierce competition out there, and you really are always on a time constraint. And I think we're very fortunate as students here to be given this experience.
The case competition is a highlight of my VSB career.
We have had students tell us that I was in an internship and I actually had to do something very similar to this, and I pulled on my experience that I had here. What this competition proves to me is that Villanovans thrive with a challenge, and students demonstrate that through this particular event.
Villanovans thrive when faced with challenge. This program enables students to learn from a very high-pressure, real-world situation, and it gives industry judges a chance to see our exceptional students in action. It's truly a win-win, and many of you have volunteered for this as judges in the past, and we're very grateful for that, and I hope this video showed sort of the impact that it's making. What a tremendous opportunity for students to shine. Another way our students can shine is by preparing them with skills and tools that set them apart in the workplace. We strive every day to best prepare our students to be successful in their careers. We are believers in strong dialogue between theorists and practitioners. In fact, it's our philosophy that new curricular ideas be discussed with executives to understand how to best prepare our students. And often, new curricular ideas come from industry. We are fortunate to have several centers of excellence and advisory councils to promote this dialogue. One of our latest curricular innovations in VSB is in the area of business analytics. Through our Center for Business Analytics, under the leadership of Dr. Matt Liberatore, we started talking with industry leaders about adding business analytics to our curriculum a number of years ago, and the need was obvious. With this executive input, we designed the first ever business analytics course in the country, the first required analytics course in the country. It was designed from the ground up without any pre-existing content. It was all new material. And this is very different from what you see at other schools. I have firsthand knowledge of another very well-known school, Catholic school, I'll leave it at that, that their approach to analytics was to change a syllabus from one word to analytics. True story. Every VSB student now takes a course in business analytics as part of the quantitative sequence. Very soon after this course was first offered, we launched, because of students demanded it, a minor in business analytics, which within 1 year became the most popular minor in the school. We've since launched a Master's of Science in Analytics. We've created an analytics specialization in the MBA program, and now we're looking to expand offerings through our undergraduate co-major in analytics.
There's been a tremendous interest in the importance of analytics in business, and I think the biggest reason is the fact that the applications and the success stories have been significant over the past 10 years.
Higher education organizations began to realize that industry was demanding individuals that were data savvy and had some facility for analyzing data.
We have an undergraduate core class in business analytics. This is giving our students a leg up. We are one of the first undergraduate business programs to have a required core class in business analytics, and we're building strong skills upon that foundation.
The importance of analytics is increasing, and it is becoming more and more critical, where we need to figure out how do we do what we do better and quicker and faster, all in real time.
I decided to start studying business analytics because I felt as though it really could be applied to every single career opportunity. Businesses everywhere today are using analytics, and they really need it to remain competitive.
The differences that you see in students once they complete any of the analytics courses is that they have a better understanding of the business, and they have a better understanding of what the data means and how the data can be used to make better business decisions.
During my internship, I was given an assignment to look at this fund that has been steadily decreasing. I compared the balance of the fund to different macroeconomic data to see which factors were most closely related so we can better predict changes in the future.
The Master of Science in Analytics is made up of 11 courses. It's 100% online. In the last semester in the program, they're going to be taking a practicum. The capstone practicum ties everything together. All the analytic skills they've developed, they're applying in a real-world consulting project. They're working with a company on a real business analytics problem.
The analytics program has really given me a competitive edge, and having that background knowledge has been really beneficial, and it makes me feel more comfortable. Data is so important in today's economy, and just knowing how to use, transform, and make the most of that data to really give a solid recommendation about what a company should do is a huge advantage.
Analytics becomes a differentiator. It allows the student to have an additional skill set which makes that student even more valuable in the marketplace.
Villanova is very special to our entire family, and the gift from our family created the NIDIC Business Analytics Fund, and the main use of that is to help enhance the analytics curriculum within VSB. I truly believe in analytics as a field. It's important today, but it will be more important in the future.
The importance of analytics is real, and we will continue to create programs and prepare our students for the real world. We're fortunate to have our pulse on this growing industry through corporate partners like you. The third example of our exceptional student experience ties into our Augustinian heritage. Villanova has developed a strong and deep commitment to service, and we strive to instill this in everyone who comes here to learn. Our undergraduates have many opportunities to volunteer, and they do. It is more difficult for our busy part-time graduate students to take advantage of these opportunities. But we built it into the MBA curriculum in a way that also teaches them important business skills. And it's been extremely successful and impactful experience. The Social Enterprise Consulting Practicum is a course in which students partner with a local nonprofit or social enterprise of their choice to help them solve a business problem.
One of the things we're trying to do in our MBA program is to make sure that we give that Villanova pride to that program as we do to so many other programs. That pride is encapsulated in the Social Enterprise Consulting Practicum.
The teams go out, find a nonprofit social enterprise, sit down, talk through their strategic challenges, and then identify different types of projects that can be done within a semester's time frame.
My team worked with Cradles to Crayons, a local nonprofit organization that provides children under the age of 12 with the essential items they need.
As a nonprofit, our resources are limited, so working with MBA students like the Villanova group have helped us focus on particular issues that we felt we could improve so that we can serve our communities better.
One of the things that we helped them do was identify a new market for them to garner donations from, and helping them understand who their corporate sponsors were and how they could get more donations, both monetarily and supplies.
I think what makes this group work unique is that some people come in with a lot of consulting experience and some people come in with none. This is a really great chance for the people to practice their project management skills, while people who don't necessarily have that background can really learn a lot from their classmates.
One of the unique features of this course is you're really given a really unstructured problem statement, and it's your job to come up with a discrete initiative that ultimately becomes a product or service that the nonprofit's going to go ahead and use and hopefully implement immediately. Capstone is probably one of the most rewarding classes in the MBA program. It really gives you an opportunity by taking you out of the classroom with a local organization in your own community and really just provide them with resources to solve a problem, but you're also being able to take everything you've really learned and be able to apply that in a really holistic way.
At Villanova, we think that all of the students that we teach should have a grounding in the way in which people live their lives. It gives them an opportunity to see that even at the earlier stages in their career, they don't have to wait to be 65 and retired to be able to give back. They can start giving back now, and we show them a route into doing that.
Cradles to Crowns is just one example of how our students impact our local community. Students have consulted for over 100 local organizations. Some of those organizations come back year after year, and some of our students maintain relationships with those organizations beyond graduation. So the Bartley Briefcase Challenge, our focus on analytics, and the social enterprise consulting are just a few of the types of programs that differentiate VSB and its graduates. These are the types of programs that attract 1,430 companies to campus to recruit our students. These are the types of programs that result in a 99% placement rate for our graduates. These are the types of programs that have an average starting salary of $60,000 per year for our graduates. These are the types of programs that attract good students to Villanova, transform them into exceptional students, and exceptional students become leaders in their organizations. They not only get great jobs, they excel and they thrive. And these programs would not be possible without our alumni and our friends giving of their time and their expertise and their philanthropy. I encourage all of you to get involved and see how you can make an impact on our students. Thank you to everyone for the role that you play in what makes Villanova a special place. Thank you. So I've talked about the student experience in the context of VSB, but in the greater university, the student experience is just as positive. And so in that light, we want to talk about the academic enterprise and why we do what we do and why we exist. I'm pleased to welcome my colleague and friend, Provost Pat Magidi. As most of you know, Pat served as the Helen and William O'Toole Dean of VSB for 3 years and has been a member of our faculty since 2008. He serves as an associate professor of strategic management and entrepreneurship and is the former Carmen and Sharon Danella Director of the Center for Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship, the ICE Center, which is now the ICE Institute. Prior to academia, Dr. Magidi spent nearly 15 years in the steel and mining industries, where he founded 2 successful companies and held a variety of roles, including Chief Executive Officer, Director of National Sales, and board member. He has also consulted for a variety of international organizations, including several Fortune 500 organizations, on many facets of strategy and entrepreneurial thinking. He received his BS in chemistry from St. Joe's University. We won't talk about SATs, Pat. An MBA with high honors from Johns Hopkins University, and a PhD in strategic management from the University of Maryland. Please join me in welcome Dr. Patrick Magidi, Villanova University Provost.
Thank you. Thanks. Great. Where do you want me to sit? Thank you for that nice introduction. That's the long bio. I get a little bit nervous when I hear all those things.
Well, we would appreciate it if you would have given us the short one.
Yeah. I don't think I gave you one. Well, it is indeed a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's great. This group of people in this room, I just cannot say enough about what you all do. So really, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, Daniel. I appreciate it.
So this conversation about Pat's new role, and we're certainly proud of what Pat accomplished in the business school, I certainly hope to follow in those in that regard. But we thought it would be good to sort of have a conversation about Pat's new role and how his experience in VSB prepares him for that. So the first question I want to ask Pat is that, there's lots of universities that have provost positions, and Villanova just announced you as the very first provost. And so I think a lot of people want to know, first of all, what the heck is a provost? And then why do we need one now?
That's a good question. So I probably have heard that question at this point thousands of times. I asked it myself initially. But a provost is, as you pointed out, the provost, the position exists in most universities across the country. It's the chief academic. And at Villanova, we've had a position for years called the vice president of academic affairs. And for all intents and purposes, that was a very similar role to provost, the chief academic. But as Villanova has expanded and grown and changed over the years, various aspects of the academic enterprise were housed and reported to different places. So for example, until very recently, we had 5 colleges, 4 undergraduate colleges. Now we've just recently launched the College of Professional Studies, which is very similar to what you all might remember of University College. But the law school, our 6th college, has always reported to the president of the university. It's just the way it has been. The library at various times has reported to the Dean of Arts and Sciences. The Career Center has reported at various times to different individuals. Enrollment, advancement has reported to the president. It's reported elsewhere. And so the provost's position and this reorganization that Father Peter spearheaded has to do with bringing together all things having to do with our academic enterprise under one sort of heading and seeing if we can use that as a mechanism to find opportunities to be more efficient, to be more effective in what we do, and also look at ways that we can be even more effective and have a bigger impact on our students. And so underneath the provost's office is all of those functions, the 6 colleges, Career Center, the library, all the learning support mechanisms. We have a math center, we have a writing center, a general learning center. We have, as I mentioned, enrollment, admissions has a lot to do, your sort of input in terms of the student's body, what happens while they're here, and on the other side, like any other sort of process model. So that's kind of the one answer, I guess, in terms of why the provost position, why right now. It's just that we're at a time in our history where we need to sort of consolidate, look across. It's been really interesting. For example, the deans. We have a council of deans where the 6 deans of the academic colleges come together and meet. I was part of that. You're part of that now. But prior to this reorganization, the law school dean never sat with those other deans in any formalized way. And if you can think about the opportunities for collaboration, he and I, John Gatun and I used to meet when I was dean as he's the dean of the law school. We'd have lunch and we'd think of ideas, but it wasn't a formalized mechanism to bring us into the same room and think about areas like compliance, where we might have overlap. They have a master's of taxation in our law school that's very successful, that many business school students teach at. And you can think about very simple opportunities that exist if you can break down those silos. And it starts with bringing people in the same room. It's pretty basic interpersonal skills, but it's also basic management. And as our world, so that's kind of the internal piece of it, but also it's become much more competitive in higher ed. All you need to do, if you're local, you would have seen in the newspaper in the last couple months stories about some of our traditional competitive set, the other Catholic schools in the Philadelphia area, like LaSalle, like my alma mater, St. Joe's. Schools are really having a difficult time in the marketplace, and it's very competitive. We're not immune, and we certainly don't ignore the fact that tuition has been on the rise. It's become a touchstone and something of a poster child in the media of an issue that we don't lose sight of. But because of those competitive dynamics, it really necessitates that we operate not only efficiently because it's what we need to do to compete, but also there's this responsibility we have to our students to ensure that they are getting the most out of their education they possibly can. And that's, again, that plays out in the competitive landscape to ensure that we're providing students with an experience that I think is unlike any other. I think we do undergraduate education at Villanova in particular better than anybody else in this country.
Oh, great. So you came to Villanova as a faculty member in the management department, and I seem to remember that I was actually your boss at that point. But you know, you jumped over me.
They were nice to me,
it's
actually.
kind of hard to catch you. But so then you served as the director of the ICE Center and then dean. So what is it about the provost job that interested you?
That's a great question. I mean, I had 15 years, running a businesses, small businesses in industry, and there was an aspect of that life that I loved. I loved the sort of the deal making and I'll always, good, better, and different, I'll always think of myself as a sales guy. And, I missed that aspect of the, quote unquote, real world. But I made this decision that tapped into another part of my interests, this, academic or scholarly pursuit, and just interest in new knowledge and research, and really a deep interest in teaching. And so when I made I always say it was like a pre-midlife crisis in my mid-30s and went back for my PhD, I kind of thought I was putting that running of a business piece behind me and having to do with organizations, although that's my area of study, as you pointed out. And it, when the opportunity came along, when I was asked if I would consider being a candidate for the dean's job, I did a lot of soul searching at that time and decided to go for it, and it was the
I think
last
you actually
person
came
standing.
to me for advice at that point.
I did. I had to come tell you, since you're on the search committee, I didn't want you to be surprised when you saw my name in the applicant pool. But ultimately, it's funny, sometimes our students stress. With all of the amazing things that has happened for Villanova in terms of students that are just incredible individuals. They come to us with world-class experience. They've traveled, they've done service. As you pointed out, they have SATs that approach perfection. They're amazing individuals, but they also have a laser-like focus. This is a group of students and individuals who are really targeted, ambitious, and they get very anxious over career decisions, decisions of majors. And I always think, sometimes there's an element of that in putting yourself on the right course. There's an element of, life has its own plans for you. And so that's what happened to me. And then when I became the dean, it was a tough entry point. It was a tough few months. It was, there were times in there, as I've shared in the past, where I thought, I made maybe the greatest mistake of my entire life. 2 weeks in, I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to go to Father Peter. I'm going to say, you admit you made a mistake, and I'll admit I made a mistake, and we'll just move on from there. But I can remember the day 4 or 5 months in where I woke up and I saw this. I love this job. I absolutely love this job. It's the first, for a poor kid growing up outside of Allentown, a job was not something you're supposed to love. It was something that was supposed to pay the bills. And it really brought together this business aspect of running an organization and this academic pursuit and the love of the scholarly life in an incredibly unique way. And I just enjoyed that so much, and we've done incredible things together with this group. The support, as you would share at this point, and I know you've said this before, but the extent to which Villanovans are willing to help this institution is something that is truly, truly unique and special. And so the opportunity to have an even greater role, my PhD is in strategy, and I have this interest and love the scholarly life, and the opportunity to be at a place that I love and have grown to be a part of over my 8 years. It was almost too perfect of a script to be written in the real world, and not only that. What's interesting about Villanova and exciting about Villanova, maybe we'll talk about this maybe in a minute, but Villanova has been a school on the move. We know that, right? We all talk about that. But even at a strategic level, we are on the move. We are on the cusp of a new era at Villanova where we will be classified in such a way that you will find us right head to head with the finest institutions in this country and the finest Catholic universities in this country. And that kind of shift, I know you would maybe frustratingly, some of us might share the fact that we move slow in academia, but that kind of shift, that kind of change, that kind of movement and dynamism doesn't happen in academia very often. So to have the opportunity to be at a place that I loved, tapping into my scholarly interests, my organizational background at a university that is doing something that no other university in the country is doing. I think strategically, this is the most exciting story in the entire country. So the provost job is perfect for that. So that tapped into me at a personal level, as did Father Peter and Father Peter's leadership. the last 10 years here we've been on a tear, and that's because of Father Peter's leadership. And as dean, as you know, Daniel, you get a chance to work with Father, and Father and I increasingly started working together more and more as dean. And I think that relationship, is a unique one. Father's a unique leader. He's a visionary. He's collaborative, and there's just so many positive aspects of this position. So it's a very long story, but just so many things come together in terms of my interest in this job.
That's great. So you talked about the scope of the job and lots of different reporting structures and so forth. With so much going on, where do you start? Where do you plan to start?
I'm going to try to start getting some more sleep. And my 2 months, it's been an intense 2 months. I have been overwhelmed with the information flow coming at me. I've talked to many of you just earlier today. The biggest thing that we have, so there's one aspect of the job that I'm a bit overwhelmed with, and that is the business school is as incredibly successful as it is. When you look across the entirety of the academic enterprise, it's a fairly small fraction. Trying to think about the amount of attention that it requires, and maybe 10 to 15% in comparison to the other 5 colleges and the Career Center and all those other things I mentioned. So, I'm coming into a job where I'm pretty much feel very expert on 10 to 15% of it, and the rest is a lot of learning. Enough knowledge to be dangerous, perhaps, but I've just immersed myself, and so I've been starting with really going out and listening. So that's kind of at the personal level. On the university level, what's the thing that is on the forefront, and I guess as I alluded to before, is this change to a nationally ranked university, and so I'll share a little baby with you all about that. Villanova, as many of you know, has been ranked the #1 master's granting institution in the North region for 23 years straight. We just hit our 23rd year 2 weeks ago by U.S. News and World Report. On that list are schools like Providence is typically #2, Loyola College of Maryland is on there, University of Scranton, St. Joe's is on there, Fairfield. They're a competitive set that we don't really compete with anymore. We track our overlaps in terms of where students go, if they apply to Villanova, where else are they applying, where are they attending, and who's our main competitive set. And it would not surprise you to know that by and large it is Georgetown, BC, and Notre Dame, nationally recognized Catholic universities. And so we have been, in all aspects of the term, a national university probably since the 1985 championship. You look at that pivotal point in time, and the trajectory of Villanova has been, again, unrivaled in that 30-year period. It's been incredible. But we haven't been recognized as such but for one small little thing. We have several PhD programs in the university. We have one in philosophy, we have one in engineering, we have one in nursing. We graduate a pretty small number of PhDs. We have tremendous graduate programs, tremendous PhD programs, but we are primarily, and always will be as long as I'm here, an undergraduate institution that is unrivaled, bar none. We were graduating for the last several years about 16, 17 PhDs a year. Well, once you cross over 20 graduates in the PhD programs, that's when you are recognized to be a different than a master's granting institution. It's that simple. So with a very small change, and just organically, we have changed into a doctoral granting national institution, and this next year we expect U.S. News will recognize us as such, so we will hit this national list, which is unbelievably exciting for Villanova. It's also, though, I think necessary. Not only are we not competing with those other schools regionally, but the regional schools are really struggling. I mentioned my alma mater, but we have information about Fairfield, other schools, Scranton, who are struggling because of the decreasing demographics in the Northeast. Catholics, high school kids, all on the decline in the Northeast. So if you are a regional school, your draw, your targeted market is on the decline. Villanova, fortunately, has had this national presence. So we continue to set application records when these other schools are struggling to make their enrollment numbers and are losing literally millions of dollars a year in their revenue model. So our growth areas include places like Chicago and Southern California and Texas and Florida, and actually California just recently became our 4th largest alumni base. So managing that change is you asked, what's on the horizon. This is the thing that is hanging over me. It's something that I'm thinking about morning, noon, and night. Two aspects of that, probably more than two aspects of it. But how do you communicate to the world? Now, this group I appreciate an opportunity like this to say, we are number one in something, and next year, everyone, we're going to be 48th in something, or 52nd. So we'll be number one in the North, and next year when we hit that list, we'll be somewhere between 45th and 55th likely on the national list of universities. And it's important that we realize and communicate in a way that everyone understands how exciting that news is. So the rank and file will just see us go from number one in something to number 48, and that's managing that process and communicating that in such a way is something that is on my mind. That's sort of number one. The second aspect of this is, where do we hit that list? The list is, the U.S. News uses about 10 to 12 variables, things like graduation rate, SAT score, the quality of the incoming student body, the numbers of faculty that are full-time, the percent of giving, the percent of your alumni that give. These are all factors that are rolled into the U.S. News and World Report ranking system. So making sure that we're not a slave to the rankings, but also paying attention to that and hitting that list as high as we can. So those are some of the things that I think that excite me, but are dominating my thoughts. We are not going to be a different university next year, but the world will look at us differently. And we expect, and we will be ranked on the list as one of the top 4 Catholic universities in the country, a position that we know we are in already, but have not been formally recognized as such by anybody but ourselves. That'll change next year.
Yeah. So you talked about being immersed in the job, and we know that you're good at that. And we know that you've had conversations around campus and with different constituents. And what have you learned most in the first couple of months?
I learned so much. I guess one thing I learned, but already knew, it's an incredible honor to have this job. I recognize we are, stewards of a place that you all, hold so near and dear, and so it makes me a little bit choked up to even think about that responsibility for real. And so it's a great place, but to have the honor to be able to go out, I can literally make a call to anybody on this campus, and they kind of have to see me. So that's different. Yeah, right. But it's enabled me to, I've probably in the last 2.5 months, the place I've least spent time in is the business school.
Yeah, I know.
By far, yeah.
I'm aware.
Well aware. But I get the chance to see, again, this is the case, but to meet individuals across this campus, faculty and staff alike, and the extent to which they love the place, they are dedicated to the place, how passionate they are about, they're in some of the most esoteric, thin slices of their research world that they are just passionate about and engaged on, and it's really infectious. It's amazing to have that opportunity, and so we get frustrated sometimes, especially in the business school, and just as pragmatic individuals with things like the arts, and do they really are thinking about the what's happening to students after school? And I can just tell you that the extent to which the people on this campus care about Villanova and the students that they teach is inspiring. It's inspirational. It's truly to have a window view into that is an honor beyond beyond words, actually. So again, it wasn't so much of a surprise as it was just a validation of everything that I hoped to believe in Villanova. And I'm here to share with you all that if you feel that way, it's the case.
So you're part of this executive team that was part of the restructure. And so maybe talk a little bit about that, and then what people really want to know is, what's it like working so closely with Father Peter?
That's a good question. Actually, let me go back to the question about other things I found out. We need help with facilities. We need help with facilities on this campus. So that's one piece I found out, is that we are going to work on, we have done great things with the master plan around here, but Father Peter and I have had a lot of conversations about the spaces in which our students are learning and where our faculty are working. So that's on the negative side as much as there is positive things, but we have work to do there. And that kind of leads me into this. Working with Father Peter has been great. Father Peter, I found out as being dean, one of the reasons, again, I took this job was to work with Father Peter, is that Father Peter's an incredible face of this institution. He personifies so many of the good traits that we believe in Villanova, from our Augustinian traditions and our community. I mean, he just is the face of the place. You couldn't think of a better leader in terms of, putting someone up in front of an audience and saying, that is Villanova. I mean, you don't often have that opportunity in a leader. But what I found out through being dean and working on a number of things is when you close that door, he can be very tough. He can be tough, and what surprised me more than anything when I was dean and had those opportunities is how ready, willing, and able he is to make tough decisions. I know you get a window into that too. I mean, I can remember the first time as dean where, we were working on an issue with this was a particular wing, was an HR issue, which you spend a lot of time on at a place where, any of you that are managers, and it hit me. This guy really means business. So I think that speaks volumes about the level of stewardship and what he feels the value of doing the right thing is. And so working with him has been that way. So we had the chance, we meet every week for 2 hours, and those meetings are incredibly candid. So we just shared something this morning where I had to preface it and said, we could say anything to each other, so I'm about to test that right now. So that happened this morning. And it was the case. It was true. So that he has put an incredible amount of faith in me, and that's not lost on me. But, also I put a lot of faith in him. I want to be here, and I want us to do continue to do great things at Villanova. So it's been good. I would say that, I've told some of the board members that I've had a chance to explain this to, is that if you are thinking about, how's the leadership team getting along, the report is very good. It has exceeded my expectations, which were already high based on my interactions with him.
Oh, that's great. So you talk about this transition between the Vice President of Academic Affairs and the Provost. What are some of the challenges that you faced in that transition? Well, I have had these personal challenges of just in terms of learning about what's going on and coming up to speed. There have been, I spent a lot of time earlier talking about this information flow from across the university coming at me. But there's a whole other set of, I kind of feel in the middle. Maybe it's a middle management type of job, that I'm talking a lot to our faculty and to our deans and to the directors of our centers. But I have been surprised, I thought I knew everything that was going on at the university, but I was surprised at how much I have to learn about the university and what's going on operationally and strategically. And so I've been spending a lot of time with Father Peter and Ken Velosky. You sort of alluded to this, but the provost job is not only a practical outcoming or outgrowth of the competitive landscape and our complexity as an organization, but it's also part of Father Peter's reorganization of his leadership structure. So at one point, Father recently had about 17 direct reports in his cabinet, and when he created the provost position, some of those, as I mentioned, now roll up to me, but he also created a position of executive vice president that Ken Velosky was promoted into. And Ken has areas of the university under him, like the IT function, HR, finance and accounting, athletics, and non-academic enterprise. And the three of us are essentially working. We are the executive council, and learning the dynamics of that three-person group hasn't so much been a challenge as it is just a learning curve. And talking about I mentioned something about facilities, but then talking about Ken, who runs facilities, and the tension, the natural tension that might exist there between the desire for me to have something done in the sciences versus the athletic director in the pavilion. These are the kinds of tensions that exist naturally in an organization, and navigating that has been not so much of a challenge, but a whole different learning curve. What do you miss most about being dean?
Being in that chair versus this chair. I miss this job. The opportunity exists to make this provost job, essentially what I want it to be. I assure you, I am the best provost Villanova has ever had. But one of the aspects of the job that is quite different than the dean's job is the external aspect of it. So as the number 2 to Father Peter, this is a much more internally focused job. There's no question about it. However, schools like ours that have provosts, that individual can often be quite external facing and can be someone who is engaged with the external community on issues that we work on as dean of the business school. Jobs, right? Making sure there's a pipeline, and I've always said that that's maybe Villanova's secret sauce when it comes to those 99+% placement rates, is the extent to which our Villanova community advocates for our students in their organizations, making us target schools, etc. Well, that doesn't change. So now back to thinking about the arts and engineering and the College of Nursing. I look forward to engaging firms that aren't necessarily on Wall Street or hiring right out of the business school, but are hiring other types of our students to make sure those pipelines are existing there. I just think it's a simple formula, but it takes me being out and about to a certain extent, or having an external presence. And so having the chance to press the flesh and talk to all the interesting Villanovans that we have, missed that in the last few months as I just immerse myself internally. So that'll never come back to the level that you're external at the business school, and that's okay with me. But casting a provost position that isn't just an internal COO is an important piece for me, for Villanova, but also for me in terms of what I want to be doing and how I think I can move the needle here at Villanova. Through jobs, through engaging individuals. I put this call out to all of you. Any of you who have gotten a graduate degree at elsewhere and have contacts at other schools, I'm out and about networking with provosts and presidents. They weigh very, very heavily on our rankings. And so I think that networking with them is something Villanova has never really done, except to the extent Father is on some president's councils through the Big East, et cetera. So if you have contacts, numbers of you have already made introductions at universities across the country where I hope to visit with provosts. I've already visited with a number of them. And then that directly influences not only rankings, but a pipeline paving the way for our students in arts and sciences in particular, but also across the whole university, who don't want a job. They want to get a master's degree or a PhD degree. So we owe it to those students to ensure that there's a pipeline to the very best graduate programs in the country. And I think that's where I hope to be able to move the needle there.
So from this new vantage point of this new position, what is your outlook for Villanova, and has that changed?
I think the future's bright. The present is bright. The future's even brighter. It has yet to be seen. When we move, it's hard to appreciate what might happen when we hit this national list. If you think about, if you're a high school student in California, and you're thinking about going to college on the East Coast, our research tells us that you're less likely to pick a regional school, even if it's number 1. You're likely to go to that national list of universities and pick a school on the East Coast. On our graduate programs, we think this is really where it could potentially play out. If you're a student in India thinking about getting a Master's of Science in Analytics, even though it's an online formatted program that you run, as you know, obviously, but a student in India might not even look to a school like Villanova because what is a regional, what does that even mean to you if you're in India or elsewhere? So those kinds of outcomes are terrific. In terms of the students, the input of students, you said some of the statistics, but I'm not sure you shared, but this year we didn't even go to the wait list. So we set a record in terms of numbers of applications for undergraduates, but then we also set a record in terms of yield rates. So you put out a certain number of acceptances, hoping that not all of the students take you up on your offer because you'll be inundated, and we were inundated. We shot for a class of 1,670, and we got over 1,700 freshmen without going to the wait list. Those are all incredible signs. It's why, recently we were both Moody's and S&P reaffirmed our credit ranking, despite the fact that we took on another $140 million debt to build the Lancaster Avenue project, which is another thing that's incredibly exciting. As I've shared with groups before, my favorite statistic to share right now is, if many of you are from the 1980s, graduates, commuters were about 50% of your class, I would expect, 50%. Last year, this current, freshman year, commuters are 17. Not percent, 17 students are commuting this year in the freshman class. So if there is ever an indication that we are truly a national, we are not a regional university, it's that. But it also highlights the fact why we're building the dorms on Lancaster Avenue, and I think that's going to be a transformative physical change to the campus.
So it seems like a really big job, and it sounds like you've hit the ground running. Do you have any time for anything outside of the job? Do you have fun? Are you still married?
Yeah, it depends. It's a touch and go situation when I go home.
Okay, I didn't open up something, but
my wife didn't realize the dean's job is really busy. It's a different ebb and flow of this one though, so it has been. My wife went out and bought 4 dresses the other day for one event, and I was trying to understand why that was the case. But all the women in my office told me that was normal. So. Well, it is. There are a lot of events, a lot of weekends. And I think it is overwhelming. It has been at times the last 8 weeks now, 10 weeks, but who's counting? 10 weeks have been overwhelming at times. But one advantage we have in academia that maybe all of you don't share, is that we are cyclical. So if you can survive the first year, some things will kind of repeat. Every speech, every introduction, every student group that you meet, many times it circles back in year 2, and so there are economies of learning that occur in that first year. So it's been a rush. It's exciting. I'm the first to graduate college, first one to go to college. I'm 5th out of 6 kids, first one to go to college, and the fact that I'm here. My businesses, 4 and 5 days a week would go to a steel mill for 15 years. I just still can't believe when I pull in to hear that I have the opportunity to work with so many smart people, to come to a place like this to work. The students are just the lifeblood of this place, and their energy is just, it's something that you can't describe. And so, it's truly been an honor.
So I've heard you say in the past that the dean of the business school is the best job in the world, and I just want to make sure that's still the case. Just between you and I.
I did say dean of the business school is the best job in the world, perhaps, and the jury's still out on provost whether it's the best job in the world or not.
All right, fair enough.
But it certainly has been an interesting one, that's for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we're very excited about your new role and what it means for the university going forward, and you certainly had great success in the business school, and we look forward to seeing your success at the university level. I think we have a couple minutes for questions. If anybody, you don't have to have questions. Any of the tough questions go that way. Chris.
So what do you think about Villanova expanding to maybe a satellite location to take advantage of population movements, different students, different graduate students, to maybe open up a satellite campus or brand Villanova outside of the U.S.?
I would say that it's something to think about. It's something that's brought up. We talk about this very loosely. I've never been part of any group that's delved into it deeply. My initial reaction is that it would be something we would move into cautiously, because the jury's still out on online education and how accepting the marketplace will be, employers will be of that. And so, that kind of capital expenditure or investment, even if it's not, however it would go down. Now we do, that being said, we have a Center City location that we have a cohort of MBA students. The engineering program has a master's program that they run out of the Naval Yard down in Philadelphia. Our students, nearly 50% study abroad, and one of the advantages of a Villanova student is that we don't have, they can go anywhere. They can set up a very individualized study abroad experience, and I think that we would probably feel some pressure to make that less likely if we had a destination of choice because it was part of the revenue model. So I would say it's something that maybe in my 3rd month as provost we'll pick that up.
Maybe one more question?
Patrick.
Dean,
is that his niece that just handed him the microphone?
Which is great.
So Villanova, typical Villanova story right there, right?
I'm just curious about the way you took
well, the way you see movement across schools, having the schools collaborate. An example might be the ICE Institute or other things that you see that move across schools. And
well, so this is a great question. Thank you you feel like you're planted in the audience because it's something I didn't cover. But Daniel had mentioned I helped found the ICE Center, which Patrick has been very involved in, is why he would know that this is near and dear to my heart. So the ICE Center, the premise of it is that there is great ideas that come out of collaboration. So it was a business school function, business school initiative that had a mandate across the university, and we looked for opportunities to bring people with different ideas together to come up with new ideas, that interdisciplinary, the intersection point of new ideas. And in this role, obviously, overseeing all the colleges, I'm looking for those points of interdisciplinarity that can really drive creativity and new programs potentially, bringing, I talked about law and the business school, but one could easily think about engineering and nursing and biomedical engineering or those types of opportunities. And so I believe so strongly in this collaborative spirit, and my research looks at these collision points and how companies bring together new ideas to develop new innovations. That in my, one of the first things I did as provost was to change the ICE Center into an institute that reports directly to me, to sort of foster this innovative culture and creative problem-solving skill set across the university. Similarly, we started in my first week as provost, I launched the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, which we hadn't had at the university before. Dr. Terry Nance is the first associate vice provost. She's running the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Again, in an acknowledgement that the intersection points of different perspectives, different ideas, is where new knowledge is created. And so, there's obviously a social justice argument for diversity, but there's also an economic one in that when you bring the people together with different ideas, you increase the opportunity to come up with newer, more innovative outcomes. So I think that that is something that permeates my belief system, my research, my scholarly interests, my practical interests, and it's something, that culture is something that I'd like to continue to foster at Villanova amongst our faculty, our students, our staff.
Thank you, Pat.
Good, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So we're gonna take a short break, about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and get ready for Carolyn Everson. Thank you.